And while people are losing jobs and trying to make ends meet, we have this happening. House passes healthcare bill 220 to 215. Means get insurance or pay fine, or go to jail. This is written by Joshua Burns in the Examiner on November 8th. The final vote was close, 220 to 215. In all, 219 Democrats voted to approve the measure in a largely party-line vote, with 39 Democrats voting no. One Republican supported the bill, Representative Joseph Cow from Louisiana. The bill has a steep cost, both in dollars, $1.2 trillion, and political capital, but Democrats hailed its passage as the next chapter in a governing legacy that produced Medicare and Social Security. Republicans, however, were unified in their disdain for the bill. This is perhaps the worst bill I've seen come to the floor in my 11 years in Congress, said Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan. The bill includes fundamental changes to the American healthcare system, creating a public health insurance option to compete with the private insurers, and for the first time requiring employers to offer health insurance. The bill also requires individuals to obtain insurance or face stiff penalties, including up to a $250,000 fine and 5 years in prison. Though the bill has passed the House, attention will now turn to the Senate, where Majority Leader Harry Reid has made clear he might not meet the White House's Christmas deadline to pass a bill and is still struggling to find 60 votes for Senate legislation. And before that, this same writer wrote this article, Pelosi's healthcare bill, get insurance or go to jail. Can't afford health insurance or simply don't want to pay for coverage? If the healthcare reform bill proposed by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that was being debated into the late hours Saturday passes, failure to obtain health insurance for yourself could land you in prison for 5 years. A letter from the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation released on Friday confirms that failure to comply with the individual mandate to buy health insurance contained in the Pelosi healthcare bill could land people in jail. The JCT letter makes clear that Americans who do not maintain acceptable health insurance coverage and who choose not to pay the bill's new individual mandate tax, generally 2.5% of income, are subject to numerous civil and criminal penalties, including criminal fines of up to $250,000 and imprisonment of up to 5 years. Representative David Camp of Michigan, ranking member of the House Ways and Means Committee, commented on the JCT letter in a memo released Friday. The Senate Finance Committee had the good sense to eliminate the extreme penalty of incarceration. Speaker Pelosi's decision to leave the jail time provision is a threat to every family who cannot afford the $15,000 premium her plan creates. Fortunately, Republicans have an alternative that will lower health insurance costs without raising taxes or cutting Medicare, said Camp. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the lowest-cost family non-group plan under the Speaker's bill would cost $15,000 in 2006. A vote on the bill may come as early as Saturday night. Now, I wrote up the following response to this House vote. Mandating people buy a government health plan when they're losing jobs and while the purchasing power of their money is decreasing isn't in the best interests of America. The real cause of the healthcare problem is cost, not insurance. The reason for the high costs in healthcare and education is because these are industries that government is more directly involved in. And when the Fed prints money out of thin air to prop up programs in these fields, the inflation hits these industries much quicker and the prices become disproportionate to everything else, including middle-class wages. The best solution is getting government out of healthcare, not in it. Insurance isn't meant to be a sole source of funding for routine visits and preventative services. Only by taking the third payer out and letting doctors compete for this business can the cost for these services come down, and insurance again be used for catastrophic situations like an accident or an illness, as insurance is intended to be for. From The Independent on November 7th, we have this article. Ethical travel company drops carbon offsetting, claiming it's a medieval pardon that allows people to continue polluting. One of Britain's leading ethical travel operators has launched a scathing attack on the carbon offset industry and has decided to stop offering offsets to its customers as a way of reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. Justin Francis, the founder of ResponsibleTravel.com, said he had decided to abandon offsets because he believes they have become a medieval pardon that allows people to continue polluting. In 2002, his company became one of the first British travel operators to begin offering customers the opportunity to buy into offsetting scheme. By paying money to a third-party operator that ran carbon-reducing projects in the developing world, holidaymakers could jump on board flights supposedly happy in the knowledge that any carbon dioxide released during their journey would eventually be reduced by the equivalent amount somewhere else. Supporters of the scheme, which has now become a multi-billion-pound industry, said it is a vital way of quickly reducing the world's carbon emissions and combating climate change. But a growing number of critics say it is simply a way for people and businesses in the developed world to buy their way out of a problem without actually committing themselves to reductions in their own emissions. After years of falling into the former camp, Mr. Francis has now joined the growing number of offset critics. Carbon offsetting is an ingenious way to avoid genuinely reducing your carbon emissions, he said yesterday. It's a very attractive idea, that you can go on living exactly as you did before when there's a magic pill or medieval pardon out there that allows people to continue polluting. As some of the top polluters, the aviation and travel industries have been keen to promote carbon offsetting to their customers. Until a fortnight ago, ResponsibleTravel.com used ClimateCare, a major offsetting company, which was recently acquired by the investment bank J.P. Morgan. But Mr. Francis said he became increasingly uneasy about the way the travel industry was using carbon offsets and pulled his company out of the scheme. On November 3rd, we have this article from the webpage called Reason. Representative Ron Paul's bill to audit the Federal Reserve gutted in committee. A WorldNet Daily News story reports that the bill sponsored by Representative Ron Paul, Republican from Texas, that would call for an audit of the Federal Reserve has been gutted in a congressional committee. The legislation, H.R. 1207, would also close loopholes that prevent transparency of Fed actions. It currently has over 300 co-sponsors in the House. In a telephone interview with a Bloomberg reporter, Paul said that the bill had been stripped of measures closing loopholes that protect the Fed and blamed Representative Melvin Watt, a Democrat from North Carolina, chairman of the House Financial Services Committee's Subcommittee on Domestic Monetary Policy and Technology, for ripping the teeth out of the legislation. Watt has significant ties to the banking industry and received the largest share of his 2008 campaign contributions, over one-third of his total contributions for the cycle, from the finance, insurance, and real estate industry. Watt's four largest contributors were Bank of America, headquartered in Watts District in Charlotte, Wachovia Corporation, American Express, and the American Bankers Association. Paul vowed to try to restore the gutted provisions of the bill through an amendment when it comes to the House floor for a vote. Last story is from November the 4th. It was on Vocus webpage. Estlin, G20 meeting in Scotland this week about dumping U.S. dollar. Best-selling author Daniel Estlin states that the key issue to be discussed this week at the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting being held in St. Andrews, Scotland, is how to bring down the present world financial system through dumping the U.S. dollar. Estlin first reported on this initiative as being deliberated at the most recent Bilderberg meeting held in Greece in May of 2009. Estlin says that the success or failure of this callous plan hinges on the ability of the U.S. and U.K. representatives to convince the Russian, the Chinese, and other national governments to go along with their scheme. Estlin maintains that if the co-conspirators succeed, such sudden devaluation of the U.S. dollar would result in the sinking of the world economy through a chain reaction collapse of the entire world's financial system, as discussed during the Bilderberg Group's super-secret conclave back in May. This breakdown would then be used as an excuse to launch a new world monetary system. G20 leaders are aware that those who run the monetary markets, the monetary system, control the world. That is why today the world is run through a dominant one-currency monetary system and not by national credit systems. I found a quote by someone named Lysander Spooner. And the men who loan money to governments so-called for the purpose of enabling the latter to rob, enslave, and murder their people are among the greatest villains that the world has ever seen. Also, too, just going through this page of quotes, this one is by Alexis de Tocqueville. The Republic will survive until Congress discovers that it can bribe the people with their own money. And then I have one from Thomas Jefferson. If a law is unjust, a man is not only right to disobey it, he is obligated to do so. And another quote from Thomas Jefferson is, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. This is going to conclude another episode of the America 20XY Week in Review. God bless you, and God bless America. Good night.